Hi, and welcome back to
Inspired to Game. I'm Sean.
And I am Lola. Today we are talking about Fabled, the Spirit Lands. This is by Crody Games, who we want to thank for sending us a copy of the game to review. Now, Fabled can be played solo, competitively, or cooperatively. Before we get into our review, we'll give you a quick overview of how to play it.
The worlds of humans and spirits are soon to be reborn, and the old gods must choose their successors. Each Brotherhood of Sages has chosen 7 of their number to travel the paths of the Spirit Lands and collect the Books of Wisdom. Each book offers enlightenment in prairies, mountains, or forests, but the most valued of all are the Books of Sun, which offer knowledge of the entire universe. A game of Fabled the Spirit Lands tells the stories of these sages from a prologue, through a varied number of rounds or chapters determined by your chosen scenario, to an end game epilogue. The scenario also determines where the journey tokens are placed, indicating in which chapters milestones or events will occur, as well as where you will gain new allies. Each player also begins the game with an ally, which offers varied player powers. On their turn, players will work through 3 phases. In the action phase, they can do things like add a location to the Spirit Lands with one of their sages at the foot of its path, move a sage that's already on a path, collect books of prairies, or perform up to 2 conversions which allow you to convert 2 books to one of a higher level. Next, in the movement phase, a player will declare which terrain type sages will move in. Their sages will move 2 spaces where everybody else's will move 1. Any sage that has encountered a fabled place can visit that place and resolve its game effect. And finally, in the Oblivion phase, any location that is unoccupied leaves the Spirit Lands. Play continues like this until the end of time's journey token is reached, at which time the player with the most Sun books is declared the ruler of the new universe and the winner of Fabled the Spirit Lands.
Now, what first drew me to this game was a combination of the artwork and the theme. The artwork is drop dead gorgeous. It is breathtaking, and I really love the theme of being these sages wandering around in this mystical, magical land collecting books of wisdom. That's a fantastic theme.
You had her at books.
Books and mystical, and yes, indeed.
My favorite part of the components are the little sage figures. Now they're silk screened, as a lot of wooden figures are in games, but these are silk screened so that the front and the back are different. The back is actually the back of the sage. I've never seen that.
I don't think I've noticed that.
You haven't noticed that?
No.
It's my favorite part. Even the time she's got her room, you look at it, it's the back of her head.
That's interesting.
That is the best part. Most wooden figures in games, they're silk screened the same on both sides, but these guys actually have a back and a front.
Yes.
I love it.
So there's a lot of attention to detail here. The cards are, on top of being gorgeous, are a really nice size too. They're tarot-sized cards for the locations that you put out, as well as your allies. Now, one of the things that I first noticed that I appreciated about this game the first time we were playing with it is that it feels friendly. I really like that aspect of when you choose a location to move in during the movement phase, every location of that type, everyone there gets to move. You as a first player, you're moving 2 for each of your sages in these areas, but everybody else gets to move 1. And so that gives it like a nice friendly feel. So you're always feeling like you're progressing, at least if you're on the same locations, which tends to be what you want to do, is get onto every location so you can always take advantage of some movement.
Which, as we originally played in a 3-player game and then moved into playing just 2-player games, we did notice that with less people, you don't move as often because there are less people causing that movement. It's an interesting side effect.
Yeah. So this is one that we played with a 3-player as well as our usual 2-player. We like them both, but there was an extra dynamic having those extra numbers by just having more chance to move. But other than that, it does play really well, both at the higher and the lower player counts, which is nice to see. Now, there is a solo and a cooperative element to this game, which goes into that. So if you're playing cooperatively, you can play fully on cooperatively against an automa, or you can play as rivals and still play competitively with your opponent, but with essentially almost like having another player. So you're still getting more locations coming out and more movement. So that's actually kind of an interesting thing too. So if you wanted to simulate more of the higher player count, using the cooperative rival mode is one way to do that. And there's a lot of replayability here as well. What's really interesting is you're playing scenarios, and there's a scenario book where you can choose. There's standard ones that you might want to play a lot of the times, but there's other scenarios that change different elements of it, whether it's the length of the game, different scoring mechanisms, different events and configuration of the milestones, or whichever. They'll all play a little bit differently. As well, there are so many different allies, each with their own powers, that really do affect how you're going to strategically go forward in your game. So all of that produces a lot of replayability to this. So I did mention that there's a friendliness to this game in the way that we can benefit each other through movements. However, there is still an element where you can block each other as well, because you can place new locations in wherever you want along the path. It can be at the front, it can be at the back, it could be in the middle. You can inadvertently, push your opponent's sages further back, or even block them so that the paths don't line up, which would mean then that their sage has to be returned back to them once they get to the end of their path. So there's some player interaction here in that respect, and you can play that, of course, how you will. But overall, still, it is a nice, peaceful game. And because the routes are ever changing, that does lead to changes in your strategy as well. So you need to keep on your toes here in figuring out what you want to do. Now, the interesting thing as well is you need to convert these books up. So the conversions that you can do when you have a chance to do conversions is 2 books of prairie can be 1 book of mountain, 2 books of mountain, up to 1 forest, 2 forest to 1 sun book. So you're wanting to do these, but also you need these books as your currency for putting new locations down. So there's a nice balance between doing conversions so you're not caught flat-footed at the end of the game with having a whole bunch of books that aren't yet converted up, with also keeping what you need around to put out different locations. And there's just a nice strategy there that I enjoy with balancing all that out.
And all the different fabled places that you get to visit have all these different powers. Your turn is basically puzzling out, where am I going to move during my action phase? Am I going to move during my action phase? What location am I going to choose? Because I get to move 2, but then all my opponents get to move 1, and where does that put them in relationship? And all designed to get to these fabled places that might give you more books or more options to do more conversions in very interesting ways, or even just more movement.
Yeah, those fabled places are really nice, and I love the artwork there. The only thing we noticed with our first game is some of the icons, some of it is a little bit hard to read. It's very small. Now, that only really mattered in the first game when we're getting used to what everything was and all the iconographies. But our eyesight isn't the best, so we come at this with a disadvantage to the start.
Fine, I'll get my glasses.
So what's interesting here is this game reminds me of Parks in a way. So there's that element of moving forward on a path, collecting resources. It also reminds us both of Heroes of Might and Magic, as the artwork is very similar, and to me it's also got a similar feel of the moving forward, finding shrines to interact with, things like that. So if you're a fan of either of these games, this one might be one you are interested in as well. So my final thoughts for this game: I think this is absolutely a gem of a game. I love the art, I love the theme, I love the logistics of moving your sage around along their paths. It's a ton of fun. The various scenarios as well as player powers make it highly replayable, and I appreciate that the scoring is really simple too. It's just a matter of how many sun books do you have. You can see where you stand with things, you can work on your conversions to try to beat your opponents. It is a gem of a game. If I could say it in one word, I would say Fabled is charming.
And for me, the different strategies that you can explore with the different player powers, whether or not to upgrade your allies, what paths to choose, it's a really great exercise in different strategies and rolling with the punches.
Thank you so much for watching today.
If you've enjoyed this video, please help us out by subscribing to the channel.
And as always, happy gaming, folks.
Is it recording?
It's recording. Well, now you put the doubt into my head. I'm pretty sure it's recording.
Recording for 1:07.
1:07. 1 whole minute.
1 whole minute.
1 whole minute, nothing.
Oh no! Game of Fabled the Spirit Lands takes place... No, it does not. It does, but, not yet. 8th time is a charm. Okay.
You want to say anything about all that? Or do you want to say anything about the components or something?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
And rolling with the punches. Although there are no punches in this game.
No punches to roll with?
There was there were punches. We punched the books.
We punched the books. Oh, I thought you meant like punches, like throwing punches.
There are no
at each
punches,
other.
and there were the only
no
punches
combat.
in this game were the tiles of the books. Anyway, that's a dad joke.